All right, let's look at our first set of transition words. Remember, in this section, we go a little bit slower, and then the next 4 questions will be faster. This is also a great time to tell you that I don't know how to pronounce all the words. And you've heard me intentionally missay things, but sometimes it'll happen here. So just know it's okay if you don't know how to pronounce a word. You can make up another word for that place. Okay. It's fine. It's totally fine. So let's take a look. We are trying to fill in this blank right here. And for these words, I do usually read the words first. So consequently, nevertheless, in fact, moreover. Let's take a look. Alexander Fleming discovered in 1928 that a mold, now I might just say PN if I was taking the test. So why am I going to struggle trying to say penicillium notatum? And I probably just said it wrong then. So if there's a word that you don't know how to say and it's not directly related to what's going on, like some scientific word, just make it up. PN. Alexander Fleming discovered in 1928 that a mold PN released a substance capable of killing certain bacteria. His findings suggested the possibility of an entirely new type of medicine. It took more than a decade before scientists could refine and mass produce the penicillin in usual forms. So we found something that could work, but really it kind of like sounds like this is like negating it. Like it's almost like a good word would be, his findings suggest the possibility of an entirely new type of medicine, but it took more than a decade for it to work. Now, but is like a flip. So, is it because he discovered a new type of medicine that it took 10 years? That would be consequently, not really. Nevertheless, is like, even though something is good, this is really what happened. So, nevertheless is the best word. In fact would be used to support the sentence. So it would say, in fact, they started reproducing the medicine immediately. That would be a good use of in fact. Moreover, kind of further explain something. Like, moreover, it was also used to cure acne. I have no idea. But nevertheless is the best word in this case. Let's look at the next one. All right, for centuries, what are we looking for? We're looking for this word, and our options are meanwhile, however, therefore, and eventually. For centuries, astronomers followed the geocentric model that placed Earth at the center of the universe. Nicholas Copernicus, if you don't know how to say that, NC or Nick challenged this idea in the 16th century by proposing that planets revolved around the sun. His radical claim drew criticism at first. Blank, it later became the foundation of modern astronomy. So at first they were like, yeah, but now we have later. So meanwhile usually means a couple things are going on at once. And that's not happening because at first there is criticism. And then after a period of time, it was like, yeah, we're good. So that meanwhile isn't a good use of the word. However, can mean a flip. So however it later became, that could mean a flip. That's a good like half so word. Therefore is usually used for a conclusion. And you pretty much would never probably use therefore after a criticism, unless it was something like his radical claim drew criticism at first, therefore no one listened to him. Maybe. So it's like a concluding statement. So the best word is actually eventually, because eventually relates to time. It relates to events. So eventually this happened. All right, let's look at our last question in this video. What are we looking for? We're looking for a blank toward the end. And our options are likewise, indeed, nevertheless, and instead. All right. The printing press made books cheaper and more available in Europe. Literacy rates rose as ordinary people gained access to reading material. The press also allowed religious reformers to spread their critiques of the Catholic Church. Bum, bum. It became one of the most disruptive technologies um, in of the early modern era. So, likewise means it agrees. Okay, so likewise is like let's agree together. That's not the perfect definition, but we'll take it like that. So, does the press allowed religious reformers to spread critiques? Likewise, it became. That doesn't kind of agree. Disruptive technology, like if it was something more related to religion or another specific example, likewise would probably work. Um, Indeed, it became. Indeed is emphasis. Indeed, like in action. It became one of the most disruptive technologies of the modern era. And indeed is the correct word. And it's really the correct word because it says it changed it. It made people read. It spread critiques of the church. Indeed, in action, it did it. So, indeed is a good choice. Nevertheless, is not a good choice because nevertheless is kind of like the opposite. So, nevertheless, it just stayed in the back corner of a warehouse, right? No. Instead is a replacement. So, indeed is the best answer. All right, see you soon.